Cold Assailant, Muruch. Rank, Sapphire Bishop. A fairy so rare that only a handful are said to exist in Avalon. From birth, they possess physical strength and magic ability far greater than that of other bipeds, and as such, have the reputation of a one-fairy army. Due to their incredible skill, many have appeared beside the royalty of past fairy dynasties, and fairies would often rumor that allying with a Muruch was the easiest way to becoming the next fairy king. Out of their magical abilities, they seem to prefer ice, and are able to use it to adapt to any situation. From long-distance ice blasts to propelling themselves with ice to charge at the enemy. The earth-shattering power of their every attack is so incredible that it is advised to never attempt to face them head-on. Many Muruch are seated in influential roles in the fairy kingdom and possess considerable authority. If ever an enemy appears that proves too much for any of their subordinates, Muruch will step in to deal swift justice. Lunatic Wisp Juggler, Amadan Dubh. Rank, Amber Jester. Ringleader of the Avalon Circus, Amadan's Big Top. A true master showman with impeccable talent to dazzle a crowd, Amadan Dubh was once well known across Avalon for his many daring circus acts centered around stage wisps, including the Great Wisp Cannonball, where they packed 10 wisps into a circus cannon. To Dubh, nothing is more satisfying than terrifying a poor wisp. He spends most of his days trying to devise his next devious wisp torment. Some time ago, the circus boasted a decent troupe and were without a doubt the most popular attraction in Avalon. Dubh was happy with his success and had personal hopes to make his circus bigger and better. But eventually, he became so fixated on endlessly perfecting his shows of terror that he eventually lost sight of all else, and his sanity slipped away permanently. The door to his circus has since been closed, and he stays locked in all day doing shows for no one other than himself. In the beginning, he was a fairy with a quite common small stature, who just happened to be the first in the forest to study circus performance when it came to Avalon. In his early studies, he focused on basic performance art, but gradually shifted to more wisp-based acts, which quickly became a huge sensation. This surge to fame resulted in mass wisp suffering, creating an excess of negative vibes that he absorbed to become his wobbly clown self now. His intuitive skills for maximizing the output of negative vibes through his circus wisp acts caught the attention of Puka, who praised his work and invited him to his elite council. This led to Dubh's time as the general overseer of Fairyland Tower, where he was further recognized by Puka for performing his circus tent to double as a source of protection of the Stone Shrine. Records still exist from this era of Dubh requesting increased support and advertising of his circus in repayment for his good work. Voracious Fairy Dragon, Jabberwock. Rank, Emerald Rook. Revoked. A gigantic dragon fairy, usually found near Wyvern Falls. He considers anything other than himself food, even munching down on other fairies when so inclined. He spends most of his day hunting for meals, most likely in order to maintain his sizable figure. All of Avalon is overcome by an intense dread just hearing the flap of his wings as he takes off to survey from the sky. He partakes in many exotic foods, especially pomegranates, the explosive fruit of a flower originally found in Inferno. If spotting any mid-flight, he will dive down to gobble up a mouthful immediately. His body is covered in durable scales, said to be stronger than even metal. In the past, other fairies have made many attempts to slay him, but failing to penetrate his hardened exterior, they instead inevitably become the Jabberwock's lunch. There is little more terrifying a sound than his thundering screech, which itself alone causes shockwaves powerful enough to rip apart your insides. Despite his seemingly savage instincts, he possesses an intelligence on par with most of the other fairies in Avalon, and is known to form alliances when determined self-beneficial. There was a time he offered his powers of destruction to the Fairy King Moltred, but was eventually thwarted and sealed away by his successor, Arthur. Later, this seal would be removed by the self-proclaimed king, Puka, with whom another brief alliance was formed, only for the Jabberwock to ignore most of Puka's orders and run amok in Avalon until Puka was forced to throw him into a cage near Wyvern Falls. It was not long, however, until the Jabberwock had escaped the cage and was again ravaging the forest. Ultimately, no one was truly able to contain the beast until he finally met his demise. Puka's secret weapon, Affinity, Hierarchy, Third Sphere, Angels. A common angel from the third sphere of the angel hierarchy, summoned by Puka. Affinity are considered the closest existence to humans among the angels. Their halo is said to be able to guide the misled when they descend from Paradiso. Though they are seated on the lowest sphere of the angel hierarchy, their strength still far exceeds human comprehension. An average person would likely be unable to so much as touch one. The divine weapons that these angels wield possess considerable power, able to shatter the Earth's surface with a single strike. This affinity, however, is not an actual angel, but an illusion formed by piecing together the collective consciousness of past witches who entered Avalon. It is required to stay close to Puka in order to survive, but its strength is proportionate to that of a real affinity. Puka has recently found great use for it, removing unwanted disturbances to his plans. Originally, Puka had developed a plan to brainwash an army of affinity to serve under him after he discovered a way to open a portal to Paradiso. This plan fell flat when Puka realized that his mind control tricks proved useless on the angels. But still desperately wanting to obtain angelic power, he resumed his studies of Paradiso, eventually learning how he might be able to create an affinity illusion. Though it is ultimately only a projection, the fact it looks like he has a real angel under his command tickles his narcissist nature perfectly. The true heir to the throne, Prince Lukaon. Lukaon, after returning to his fairy form by partially absorbing Cheshire's soul to remove the seal on his own. Though the full extent of his power is still not realized, he boasts strength several hundred times over that of ordinary fairies. Possessing innate talents from both parents, and having started practicing from a young age, he knows spells for every situation. His physical strength is equally a threat. He can reduce even the thickest tree trunks in Avalon to splinters with a single swoop of his claws. He is kind-natured in spirit and does not enjoy fighting, but when the situation has become unavoidable, he will show his enemy no mercy. Once engaged, he will not relent until his opponent's demise is certain, attacking repeatedly with swift, determined strikes. Though still young, he already possesses both the power and maturity needed to succeed the throne, making him the prime obstacle to Puka's ambition and reason to seal Lukaon away using the power of the elemental cores. Born between fairy and human, something strictly forbidden in Avalon, he grew up despised and neglected by the other fairies. Still, he shows no spite for his parents. On the contrary, he cares about both deeply and has trained himself daily to be stronger, so his father and mother may be proud of him. The time spent with his mother Morgana, learning magic, forms many of his most cherished memories. He is both grateful to Morgana for showing him how to be strong, and proud that he is able to carry on his mother's teachings. A merciless, unrivaled Umbran, Morgana. Cereza's teacher Morgana, revealing her true self after Lukaon's situation becomes critical. While Morgana still belonged to the Umbra, she was seen with great promise, showing potential to surpass even the elders in terms of ability. She was exiled after it was discovered she carried the fairy king Arthur's child. She loved her son so deeply, resolving to do whatever possible to save him, no matter the cost to anyone else. Having lived through the feudal period of Avalon with Arthur, through the conflict she faced, she naturally amassed an amount of techniques far exceeding that of other Umbrans. This wealth of knowledge has only been honed further in recent years as she has waited for the chance to exact revenge on Puka. These powers can instill true fear to anyone who would oppose her, and crush them completely when they do. Luring her opponents in a dimension of her own design where her Umbran abilities are amplified, she uses her contracted demon to hunt her enemy, just as a spider might trap their prey in a web. Thorn Pestilence, Lex Talionis, Morgana's infernal demon, a spider covered in thorns. After losing both husband and son in Puka's plan to usurp the throne, Morgana herself was exiled from Avalon. It was then she made a pact with Lex Talionis, swearing she would one day have her revenge. Each of its nimble legs are able to stab with astounding speed and strength. Every thorn on her body produces a nerve-rotting poison capable of immobilizing even the largest of beasts with a single drop. In Inferno, Lex makes her web in the blood-red river Styx, where she does nothing but trap and devour prey, unable to ever extinguish her uncontrollable rage. Her insatiable hunger and thirst only torture and anger her further. She cannot be communicated with by normal means, but she is able to reveal her inner thoughts to those she sympathizes with. Understanding Morgana through her lust for revenge towards Puka, she decided to form a pact with her. Morgana thinks of Lex as nothing more than a mere tool for her revenge, but she does understand the extremes of Lex's strength and values her because of this. Her favored tactic is to create a giant illusion of herself to distract her opponent while Lex rips away at its target. As of yet, none have been able to overcome it. Demon Masquerada, Forger of the Forbidden Covenant. Morgana, after growing desperate in her fight against Cereza and Cheshire, deciding to use the full extent of her power. Using a forbidden Umbran art, she merges her body with that of Lex Talionis into a twisted, half-witch, half-spider form. Lex is effectively just a vessel for Morgana. Her consciousness is completely under Morgana's control. The Umbran art through which Morgana accomplishes this fusion is known as Demon Masquerada. It has been sought after by a small group of Umbra for centuries. Very few have ever been able to perform it successfully, with failure resulting in the caster's soul being devoured by their demon immediately. Morgana and Lex are able to fuse together because of the perfect emotional sync between them. Each have nothing but endless rage built up in their heart. Between Lex's crushing, poisonous stabs with its legs and Morgana's endless assault of spells, this human-demon hybrid chases their target in relentless pursuit, never giving them the slightest opening to counterattack. As maintaining this form consumes an incredible amount of both physical and magical energy, Morgana knows she can only use it as an absolute last resort. Once unleashed, there is no promise she will ever be able to return to her original self. For the sake of saving her son, she sacrifices her own safety and throws her all into the final confrontation. Two Umbra, formerly teacher and student, one demanding obedience, the other practicing trust, one using their demon as a tool, the other approaching it as a friend. This tale is about which of those bonds stands stronger in the end.